Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745, and I'm recording this live on Twitch. So if you want to catch the Saturday show, you can follow me over on Twitch. Love to see you there. But we're going to continue this. Give you guys all a heads up in the intermission between episodes, because we are not going to send more and more ground troops into this. I have decided to use air power, which we're sending fairly large amounts of air fleets over here, and to influence the outcome of the battle. And we are also doing naval power, so that is our main focus for the war in France. Yes, we will do this. Combined arms is a good option. Not that we're not going to continue to contribute here, but just not more units. Help where we can. Now, I'm also worried about a possible... If they're not going to give up this territory here, the Ukraine, we're going to have some problems. Italian Republic declared war on the Socialist Republic of Italy. Well, good for them. Monarchy restored in Greece. Well, good for them. That's good for our viewpoint. Union of Britain has joined the Socialist Republic of Italy as enemy of the Italian War. Okay, where do we have... I thought we... Oh, there's the Union of... No, that's... Oh, there we are. Okay. Okay. We want to invade there. And we will move some fleet up there. I think that one division will do it. I'm sort of hoping it will. Okay, we will select these little bit of destroyers. Let's base them out of here. Arno, what about it? Not understanding the suggestion there. I'm understanding the words. YouTube only hard to. You mean not even black ice? But I don't get how play any country. Don't quite socialist. So, okay. Please specify more. I'm not entirely understanding that. What fleet is this? Okay, coastal patrol. That would work for one of my goals here. No, gotta unpause it. Thought I had. Okay, up here, search and destroy up here. Make sure we can do the invasion. Logistics company, good, that will help. Not yet ready for 42 technology, but we've got our hospitals up, which helps our manpower situation. I think Man the Guns is coming along fine. Finland, nope. I trust me, I've been thinking about that. Oh, I get you exactly. I totally understand what you're saying, Arno. I may do that. Quite honestly, that is sort of the reason why I haven't been playing Hearts of Iron 3 on Twitch, is because of just what you're saying. Play at my own pace. Because it is a different... It's a total different tone. And I'll... Oh, okay, we can do the Paladin. Guess that's sort of like a weak type of Spitfire. So I totally get your idea. There's two problems that I'm facing, and they are related to each other. One is making enough content. The time to make the thumbnails, time to make the videos, to upload things. That is a limiting factor, and so that's a concern. And so if I can make what I hope are relatively good and entertaining episodes with you guys here on Twitch, I'm doing two things at once. So that is part of the element. So that's part of it. The other part is, quite honestly, I think I'm facing viewer exhaustion for my current numbers of viewers on YouTube. If I were to put out a lot more content, you know, another, you know, even if it's, you know, not a daily series, but a series that's 3 days a week or 4 days a week, or even just 2 days of Saturday and Sunday, I very much think that people are going to choose, well, what to watch on my channel, because they can't watch it all, kind of thing. And so I'm sort of facing that as well. So if I'm missing if I can't make it on a Saturday with you guys, then I'm much more likely to make some content sort of like you're describing, whether it's just continuing the current series you're playing and doing something else. So I'm facing that kind of thing. And I want to bring other stuff than Hearts of Iron to the channel. Okay, we have a Churchill speech. British politician and former Lord of the Admiralty Winston Churchill has pushed a new book, part of a emerging genre known as alternative history concerning the Great War. The story takes the perspective of a young British soldier returning from a victorious Gallipoli campaign amid a world of radically different form than our own. In its timeline, Theodore Roosevelt and his Bull Moose Party win the 1912 American presidential elections, leading to an American entry in the Weltkrieg and an Entente victory. A defeated and partially occupied Germany is gripped by constant economic and political crisis, witnesses the defeat of the Whites in the Russian Civil War, and occupied by a bitter and extremely nationalistic Adam Dressler. He leads the German Workers' Party, who follow the ideology of people's socialism, an extreme version of national populism. The novel ends with the beginning of a three-sided war between Dressler's New Reich, the Western Entente led by the dominant British Empire, and a Soviet Russia led by Sergei Kirillov. The book is divided critics, with some praising its attention to detail, while other critics for its large flaws in historical logic. Churchill has commented that something like this could have happened in another universe. That's funny. But it's funny to read because I'm recognizing some of these names of Dressler and whatnot. Yeah, that's sort of what you're right, Django. Hello, Django. Anton Drexler, which was one of the founders of the DAP, the Deutsches Arbeiters Party, the forerunners to the Nazis. I would have gone with Ludendorff's, because Ludendorff also forms a radical party that gets almost nowhere, but I would have gone with him, but maybe he's too well known or something, I don't know. Now I'm gonna... I watched a few minutes of the clip that, well, he didn't directly send me, but he gave me the title. Django did, while I was sleeping, sent me a message on Steam about a video about maybe the, and I'm going to pause here because I think this is going to be interesting now that he's here and he can listen to me. And he can critique me. I'll gladly take that. About the Maginot Line, maybe it was actually a good idea. There is one major flaw with the idea. No, I'm not saying the implementation. We can talk about how well the fortifications worked. We can talk about some other things. But there's one major flaw with the Maginot Line that it created, and had that flaw not been allowed to happen, there are some very good reasons for the Maginot Line. Okay. The major flaw, we'll do that first, is the perceived... the major flaw, I'm trying to how best to do this, is the idea of pure defensive thinking. Okay? If your mindset is not defensive as in, if somebody attacks us, we're going to go to war with them, but we're not ever going to go to war with anybody else, Okay, that's one type of defensivism. I'm talking about the idea of a pure reactive, because the French in their mind were going to be reactive to German thrusts, meaning they did initially have a reserve in their thoughts, and if the Germans start to push through at one point through the line, we were going to rush up reinforcements and block the advance and then push them back. And okay, you get this defensive mindset. You can also say, I'm in this great castle. If we jump to medieval Europe, I'm in this great castle. We're, defensive. And, the enemy attacks us. So get all the soldiers inside, get all the people inside, get all the food inside, and we're just going to wait those people out. Now, that does work, particularly in the medieval world, because they don't have too good of food storage, though in somewhat ideal conditions in a castle you can get a little bit better. And because of disease, waste handling, you also get sickness in the enemy camps a little bit more than you do in a castle, because there's better systems in a castle to remove that. So if the enemy is not prepared for a long siege, you can wait them out. But if they are prepared for a long siege, you will lose. I don't care how good your army is. I don't care how good... we can see this sort of mindset in that Singapore, when the Japanese made it to the outside of Singapore, the Japanese were literally almost out of ammunition, so they almost couldn't keep fighting. They were inferior in numbers to the combat troops, I'm not just talking auxiliaries or whatever else, but to the combat troops that were still, many of them unfought. They weren't exhausted. They were troops that had never made it to any of the earlier battles on the Malaya Peninsula. So there were a bunch of more troops. So the British outnumbered them and out-ammunitioned them. I don't know that they out-firepowered them. They probably did, but if you can't sustain if you only have 10 bullets per gun, it doesn't matter if you have a bunch of machine guns. After 10 bullets, they're no longer useful. But because they had already gotten into such a defensive mindset, and the Japanese were able to take the water source for Singapore, the reservoirs, the freshwater reservoirs, the British gave up. Okay, because they were on a defensive mindset. Had they gone on an aggressive counterattack, they would have won and probably retaken all of Malaya. That would have been a disaster. The emperor would have asked the Japanese army high command in what the hell's going on and fired them, and very well may have ended the war right there with the Pacific. That literally could have ended the war. Don't turtle up and brief. So could have ended the war there. Okay, so you get this defensive mindset. Now, if you have a castle, and you also have another, because you have more than one castle, you have other troops, or you have allies, so the enemy's coming, and you all get into the castle, and you know that relief is coming. Well, that relief is the main attack, and so you're just delaying. Or if you get in the castle and you start making raids on the enemy, every night you sneak out some guys and they do some damage and they run away. You keep fighting. Okay. Move to a more modern battlefield. If you are protecting yourself with land mines and barbed wire and think you're safe, that is a mistake. The idea primarily with landmines and barbed wire is to leave gaps in it. And the idea is to channel the enemy into your machine guns. If we're looking primarily at a World War I scenario, is to leave the enemy. You can still have some landmines and some barbed wire, but you leave them a place to advance. And so you shape the battlefield. Okay. So if the Maginot Line, if you can shrug off, we're not going to completely turtle up. And we look at the Maginot Line not as it's going to protect us. We don't have to do anything more than build it and man it. But if you look at it as we're going to shape the battlefield, okay? So we build this defensive works. Whether you want to leave a hole in the Maginot Line for whatever reasons, even if it says please attack here, whether you leave that hole in it, or you sort of war game it as, okay, well, you have this impenetrable defensive line. Well, what are you going to do? Oh, we're going to go around through Switzerland, or we're going to go around through Belgium. Maybe they may think the Ardennes is impassive, because if you notice the Belgian defenses are sort of along this river here and up here, because they thought this wasn't really going to be the main line of advance, but to protect Brussels and here, and also to delay the idea that Germany is going to make a lightning thrust through Belgium, so there's no point in attacking here. They build fortifications in this area. But, well, what might Germany do? And so then if you look at this as shaping the battlefield, and so you go, okay, well, they're going to go around it. They're going to parachute over it. Or they're going to, war game out what's going to happen because you have this defensive line. And then prepare for that to channel the enemy. That works. Okay. There's another thing that the Maginot Line did do. One thing I've always argued is, although they did penetrate the Maginot Line at some points during the attack, but it forced you to go around the Maginot Line. So it did work. You went around it. France still fall because of bad leadership, but the Maginot Line basically worked. But the Maginot Line is also, if done properly, and it sort of was in that, done to give time. Okay? so that Germany can't declare war on Poland. You say, no, we're going to fight you. And then tomorrow, they're driving unhindered towards Paris. Because it made Germany go from, what was it, September 39 until May, I forget, June, I think, of 40 to attack. It gives France, it buys time for France to mobilize its armies, now it's massive reserve armies, mobilize them and get them ready for combat. So the Maginot Line worked very effectively in that fashion, okay, in World War II. Very effectively. It worked to delay German attack until France fully mobilized. Now, France's army had much other problems even after it mobilized. But that isn't the fault of the Maginot Line. Even the defensive turtle up thinking, because it's, lack of quick communications and other things are not the fault of even the turtle up scenario. So France had other faults going as well. There is I don't know if this is third or fourth idea successful for the Maginot Line, and why it's a good idea. Again, I'm not talking about whether they were able to, and they were in some phases of the war, to penetrate while there were still defensive stuff, but I think the heart was already lost on the French defenders. The Germans were able to penetrate through the Maginot Line in places. While they were still before the fall of Paris, they were able to push through it. So I'm not talking about the individual implementation, but the good idea of it is the perception of your enemies. Now, we talked earlier, the turtle up thing, perception of your people. Either think, oh, well, we don't need to do any more defense spending because we have the Maginot Line. It's all taken care of. So long as we're spending enough on the troops to maintain it, we don't have to build a good air force, or we don't have to build tanks, or we don't have to, there can be negative effects on your own civil populace. But it can have an effect, whether it's the Maginot Line or the Alpine Line. Italy made one facing Austria, worrying about Germany if they came through. But, there was these other defensive lines that were created. Is that it gives the perception of your enemy of a strongly defended position. And it influences their policies on whether to go to war, and if you're going to war, how and where. Okay, May 10th. Thanks, Django. Oh, good. Good counter programming to me. See ya, Django. So yeah, so that is why I still very much hold that the idea of the Maginot Line is good, and was successful in some of its goals, highly successful. It was France that was flawed. And just again, you can see we are, let's click over to the air power, we are supplying, well, not a lot here. We have more. You guys come up over Northern England, fighters and bombers, Southern England, fighters and bombers. We're helping out our allies with air power. I think even more fighters. Not a lot more, but more. Just to help out there. Fighters, so we're controlling the airspace more than bombers, and not a lot, but still some more coming up over here. Um, Border walls work very effectively. We can see the effect of there are a fair amount of knife attacks. There are a fair amount of car attacks inside of Israel by Palestinian radicals. But we have seen a dramatic, and I mean like only 10% of or less of explosive and gun attacks on Israeli citizens since they put up their border walls with the Gaza Strip and the border walls with the West Bank territories. So that if done right, you have to patrol the wall. And this is also whether with the Maginot Line or your barbed wire and landmines. If you make it without the gaps, and as we talked about, but it's not just a delay for planning, because if we look at the El Alamein defensive line here, we see Rommel delaying his attack to get enough ammunition and fuel and whatnot to breach it. You have that delay, but you also have the delay in getting through the line, climbing through the barbed wire, getting through the minefields. A wall won't keep anybody out. The wall makes it harder to get 10 feet because you got to go 20 feet, 30 feet, depending on your height, up in the air and then back down. And you can make other obstacles, so it won't stop anybody. The wall, it isn't like going to be you can electrify a fence. You can still throw, I don't know, rubber or some sort of material to be able to climb over it. The wall in and of itself isn't going to stop anybody. It's a controlled wall. We can see the Berlin Wall and how effective the Berlin Wall, as well as the less structurally organized, but the wall between East and West Germany was very, very effective. And trust me, the Democrats love spending money. They don't want to see Trump get the kudos for it. But all of the people that would be employed building the wall would be a big job boost. The reason the Democrats and the left in America are so vehemently against the wall, and they keep talking about the waste of money, but they'll waste money on anything else. And they only use the armed forces. They only complain about the armed forces. There used to be some Democratic leftist senators from California, since California had a large defense plants, mostly in the aerospace, so making our missiles and making our, our big missiles, our nukes, and making our aircraft. They always voted for more. They were always against using authorization of use of force, but they were always for spending money on the U.S. Army or Air Force and Navy, because a lot of it was spent in California. And so some of them will be all for spending money on the Army, but saying, well, if you can spend it on the Army, you can also spend it on hospitals for poor children, or some sort of, statements like that, as if government shouldn't be responsible for the defense, but should be responsible for poor children to be taken care of. Not that it's not, and to go to back to the earlier topic before this episode started, we were talking about progressivism. Socialism and communism are incompatible with Christianity. I've come to this conclusion, and I know there are Christians who are socialists and communists, and they say, well, but we're helping the poor children out there, and Jesus said, to help the poor children and help the poor, and so, yes, but Jesus also said to do it. He did not use force to do it. If you want to help the poor children, you should not take something from other people. If you want to have a government program that feeds the poor and does medical care for the poor, that is fine so long as they don't use any tax money. If it is pure donations, not taxes, but donations. So it could be a government-run system that says, puts commercials on TV, feed the poor children of America, donate to your government welfare program. That would be compatible with Christianity because it is the voluntary giving to the poor and the needy. It is not the enforced giving. The idea of helping the people is within the beliefs of Christianity as given by traditional Christians of the past, because you can always come up with some new theory of Christianity. You can look at the Nazis trying to twist it, but it's the problem isn't Christianity and the socialists agree on helping the needy. It is whether you use force to get the money to help the needy is the question. Just reading the thing. Hey, Hadu. Good to see you. And, government spending on infrastructure, I am opposed to it when it comes from the federal government. Unless we can very, very specifically, not just some in vague sense, say that it's, like national highways that need to be coordinated between states. Now, if we're talking about state government spending on their roads and bridges, that's fine. And if we're talking about city government spending on their roads and bridges and sewer systems and things like that, I'm fine with. But I'm not really fine with all of the, Congress is going to pass a bill to give out money to different states to build bridges. Just tax the people less, allow the state governments to tax the people to get the money to build the bridges in each of the states. You don't need to do it from Washington. That is where I get my objection to infrastructure spending via the government in the United States. And my opinions will change if we were looking at Luxembourg, and I would be for, because how many hospitals are there in Luxembourg? I'd be for a government-run hospital in Luxembourg. And tax money, because we all know how big, if we were living in Luxembourg, just how big our community is, and just how many beds in the hospital we need, and just how many doctors we need to hire, and how many nurses, and we could figure that all out for Luxembourg, and the government wouldn't screw that up too bad. And so I could be for a lot more organic, not socialist, but organic theory of government for running Luxembourg. It's just the bigger the government gets, the more problems I see. And there is, for France on World War II, and I know a lot of you are interested in this, there is very much a budgetary concern for the French. They make the R-35 and the H-35 tanks, their infantry tanks, they're designed as a replacement to the FT-17s. The FT-17s have either a machine gun or a 37 millimeter gun. The replacements have both. They specifically state in their requirements for those two, the H and the R, Hotchkiss and Renault, the two companies, and they make very similar vehicles, and they buy both, which is a problem. You should have picked one, and if you want to spread it out and have, have two factories making them, so if one of them gets bombed, you have the other factory, that's fine, but just pick one model and make that one model. But that's another thing. They specifically have it to have the same gun in the FT-17. Later on, and they only really make the H-39 that has a longer barrel plus a longer chamber for a slightly different 37 millimeter thing. Goes faster out the barrel. Basically, it's all it does. But it's partially because of the longer barrel, partially because there's more powder in the charge. It uses a different round. I've recently found out. I thought it was the same round, but it's actually a different one. More armor penetration. But the reason they specifically state that it needs to be the same type of gun for the 35 model is because they intended and did take the old World War I guns out of the FT-17 and put it into the new tank as they were decommissioning the FT-17s. Now, there was, I think, approximately 1,000 FT-17s of the machine gun and the 37 millimeter, and probably about 50-50, still in service at the time of the invasion of France. So that they were still, obviously, hadn't removed all the old guns. And they did make some new guns, but they were under that budgetary limitation because they weren't given a big enough budget. So there was a real budgetary limitation with the French army being funded. But the French army did also get a lot of stuff, but it was never enough. And so it was both in my opinion, it is both a poor decision makings on how to organize your army up, your communications. You know, do you use radios? Do you use field telephones? Do you use messenger delivery services and other things like that? And poor decisions on, do you have one guy in the turret of the tank or three? You know, some of those are just decisions. And that's part of the problem. And part of the problem is budgetary as well. So it is why they fall. It's not just this or that with France. So yeah. Okay, 100, 1,000, 1,500. Okay, good. Well, I was off by 50% or so, or no, 33% or so, but still, I had the general concept down. Trying to cut these guys off here if we can. Oh, the FT-17 was the best tank in World War I for sure. It is the foundation to all modern tanks. The idea that they have treads on either side, they have a turret. The armament is in the turret. The treads are not the big all-round things that, like the British did. And they're not the sort of just treads going along the sort of the bottom little bit like the Germans did on the, what is it, the A7V or whatever, I forget it has an A and a 7 and a V in the name, the German tank. You know, and so it sets up everything. And for World War I and the immediate 1925 or something, it is a really good idea. Well, hello, Deegan. Good to see you. Oh, you're absolutely right. The political situation contributes to the problems in multiple facets, but that is both in its preparedness as well as its willingness to resist the German attack, its effectiveness in fighting. There's a lot of things more than just, oh, Maginot Line. No, Maginot Line is a good concept. Now, are we ready to invade here? I think so. Let's... Oh, we need to put more ships at sea? Is that it? That could be it. Okay. Come out and control it. There we go. Italy wants to sign a pact of non-aggression in the Italian Republic. Anybody have any thoughts on this? Let's see, which one is the Italian Republic? Up here, okay. Oh, Oh, it's a really small tank, Arno. You're very correct on that. I remember many years ago, there was a guy who was a massive uniform collector from World War II. That also owned a sort of old style military type hobby store, but he had where he had it had a huge sort of back area that he'd set up as a museum, and you could go through it, and they had it. You'd get a tape player. I mean, there were signs on things, but you get a tape player and you play a tape that would talk you through walking through the museum, and it was all private, so it's in a hobby store, so it isn't huge. But to a 10-year-old who was fascinated by military uniforms and collectibles, and he had his outstanding, I think he owned one of Goering's pistols, because Goering owned several pistols, and some other stuff. But he also owned an FT-17 that had been knocked out. It was nowhere near drivable condition. I don't know what's happened to it. I'm sure it very well may have been restored by now, because I know there's been several restoration projects on some of those. But so I, as fairly young person, I remember seeing that FT-17, and they are very small. You can see some good videos on them on YouTube right now. Yeah, it's this Italy. Communism was quite popular in France at the time. But it was nowhere near like a majority. I doubt, and I don't know, and so don't take this to the bank, but I doubt it had more than 15%, 20% popularity. If you throw in socialism, then you're getting to a 40 to 50% popularity if you put the two together, communism, socialism. Well, I guess this is all right. Not quite. Well, it's not these guys, of course, and it's not these guys. They have social liberal. Don't know if it really matters, but they're at war with the same people we're at war with right now. And they have non-aggression pacts with most everybody. So I guess we're going to give it to them. I have no plans on attacking them. Obviously, they could come into a coalition that's opposing me. Okay, well, we're going to, not the chat or the stream, but we're going to end the episode here. I want to thank you all on YouTube for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. You can follow me over on Twitch if you like. And, of course, I love hearing from you. And comment about what I've been talking about or about the game, either way, and what's going on with the wacky and crazy world of Kaiserreich. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.